Australia is home to the world's oldest living cultures. These cultures have thrived for millennia, adapting to the diverse and often harsh environments of the continent. From the arid deserts to the lush rainforests, Indigenous Australians have developed a deep understanding and respect for the land. Indigenous Australians are the first peoples of this land. They have a rich heritage that includes a variety of languages, customs, and traditions that have been passed down through generations. They have lived here for over 65,000 years. This long history is evident in the ancient rock art and artifacts found across the country, which tell stories of their ancestors and their way of life. There are two main groups: Aboriginal Australians and Torres Strait Islanders. Each group has its own distinct culture, language, and traditions, yet they share a common bond through their connection to the land. They make up a small part of Australia's total population. Despite their small numbers, their cultural impact and contributions to Australian society are significant and profound. In the 2021 census, about 3.8% of people identified as Indigenous Australians. This statistic highlights the importance of recognizing and supporting this vital part of the population. This means their ancestors were here before anyone else. The land holds their history, their stories, and their identity, making it sacred and integral to their existence. Their history and culture are deeply connected to the land. Traditional land management practices such as controlled burning have been used for thousands of years to sustain the environment and ensure its health. It is important to remember their long and rich history. This history is not just a part of the past, but continues to influence the present and future of Australia. We must acknowledge the challenges they still face today. Issues such as land rights, health disparities, and social inequality are ongoing struggles that need to be addressed. Indigenous Australians have a strong spiritual connection to their land. This connection is expressed through their stories, ceremonies, and rituals, which are an essential part of their cultural identity. This connection is central to their beliefs and way of life. It influences their art, music, and daily practices, creating a unique and vibrant culture that is deeply rooted in the natural world. It is important to understand this connection to appreciate their culture. By learning about and respecting their traditions, we can foster a greater appreciation for the rich and diverse heritage of Indigenous Australians. The arrival of the first humans in Australia is a mystery, shrouded in the mists of time and the vastness of the ancient world. Scientists believe they came from Southeast Asia, navigating treacherous waters and dense forests. They traveled across land bridges that existed during the Ice Age, when sea levels were much lower than they are today. The oldest human remains found in Australia are called Mungo Man and Mungo Lady, discovered in the dry lake beds of New South Wales. They are about 40,000 years old, providing a glimpse into the distant past. This shows that Indigenous Australians have been here for a very long time, thriving and evolving over millennia. They adapted to Australia's diverse environments, from arid deserts to lush forests and expansive coastlines. They developed unique cultures and technologies, crafting tools and creating art that reflected their deep connection to the land. Their knowledge has been passed down through generations for thousands of years, through storytelling, ceremonies, and daily practices. These ancient paintings tell stories of their ancestors, depicting their lives, beliefs, and the world around them. They show the animals they hunted and the plants they gathered, illustrating their resourcefulness and deep understanding of their environment. The rock art is a powerful reminder of their deep connection to the land, a testament to their enduring presence and cultural heritage. Before Europeans arrived, Indigenous Australians lived in harmony with the land. They had complex social structures and spiritual beliefs. They were skilled hunters, gatherers, and fishers. They developed sophisticated tools and weapons such as boomerangs and spears. They also had a deep understanding of the land. They used fire to manage the environment and promote plant growth. This practice is known as fire stick farming. They had a rich tradition of storytelling, music, and dance. They used art to express their beliefs and pass on knowledge. These ceremonies are a way to connect with their ancestors and the spiritual world. They are an important part of their cultural identity. The arrival of the British in 1788 had a devastating impact on Indigenous Australians. The British ships carrying settlers and convicts marked the beginning of a dark chapter in Australian history. They lost their land, their culture, and their way of life. The land that had been their home for tens of thousands of years was suddenly taken from them, and their sacred sites were desecrated. Many were killed in conflicts with the settlers. These violent confrontations were often brutal and one-sided, with Indigenous Australians facing superior weaponry and tactics. Others died from diseases brought by the Europeans. Smallpox, influenza, and other illnesses spread rapidly, decimating entire communities who had no immunity to these foreign diseases. The British government declared Australia as terra nullius, meaning empty land. This legal doctrine ignored the complex and rich cultures of the indigenous peoples who had lived there for millennia. This ignored the presence and rights of the indigenous population. The settlers viewed the land as theirs for the taking, leading to widespread displacement of indigenous communities. They were forcibly removed from their traditional lands. This forced relocation often led to the loss of traditional knowledge and practices. As people were separated from their ancestral lands, they were placed in missions and reserves where they were subjected to assimilation policies. These policies aimed to erase indigenous cultures and languages, replacing them with European customs and beliefs. Many families were torn apart by these policies. The separation of families caused deep emotional and psychological scars that have been passed down through generations. Children were taken from their families and raised in institutions. These children, known as the stolen generations, were often subjected to harsh conditions and abuse. This tragic period is known as the stolen generations. The impact of these policies is still felt today as Indigenous communities continue to fight for recognition, justice, and healing. Section 5. Contemporary issues and challenges. Today, Indigenous Australians still face many challenges. They experience higher rates of poverty, unemployment, and poor health. They have a lower life expectancy than non-Indigenous Australians. They also struggle for recognition of their rights and their culture. They are working to preserve their languages and traditions. They are seeking justice for past wrongs. The fight for land rights is a central issue. They are seeking recognition of their native title rights. They want to have a say in how their land is managed. Section 6. The Torres Strait Islanders. Torres Strait Islanders are a distinct cultural group. They live on the islands between Australia and Papua New Guinea. They have their own unique languages, customs, and traditions. They are known for their seafaring skills and their beautiful art. They have a strong connection to the ocean. One notable Torres Strait Islander is Eddie Mabo. He fought a long legal battle for recognition of his people's land rights. His case, known as the Mabo decision, was a landmark victory. It acknowledged that Indigenous Australians had a system of land ownership before colonization. Section 7. Respectful terminology and representation. It is important to use respectful language when talking about Indigenous Australians. The terms Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander should always be capitalized. It is also important to use the terms Indigenous Australians or First Nations peoples when referring to both groups. Avoid using outdated and offensive terms. Use the names of specific language groups when possible. This phrase, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, is a powerful statement of their ongoing connection to the land. It is a reminder that their history and culture should be respected. Section 8. Conclusion, resilience and recognition. Indigenous Australians have shown incredible resilience. They have survived colonization and continue to fight for their rights. Their cultures are vibrant and diverse. It's important to learn about their history and their stories. We must work towards reconciliation and understanding. Their future generations will continue to share their culture with the world. It is up to all Australians to ensure that their voices are heard and their rights are respected.